And actually, Joe, you said Bristol FC. I thought we were kind of in football territory. But I'm really delighted that Erica Farmer, I think you need to come up and get mic'd up. So I'm really pleased that Erica Farmer is back with us this year. And she's making her second debut. And we're going to be talking about AI, which I think probably all of us have been discussing in one forum or another. And I was sat with Erica's business partner last night at dinner, and my many thanks to Aptem for hosting. And I realized something, I learned something new, that ChatGPT is not Google. And therefore, you cannot chat GPT yourself because it won't work. We did try it out on, drawing a profile of Dr. Manja Crawford-Lee. Doesn't know me. But Erica is going to kind of talk us through some of the developments since she spoke to us last year about how we're using technology in our teaching, learning and assessment. So I'm delighted to welcome Erica. She's just finishing getting her mic.
Mandy, great feeling.
And actually Erica's earning her lunch today because she's not only speaking now solo, she's now on the panel which is coming up after her solo, and she's also delivering a workshop. So well done, Erica.
Thanks, Mandy. You're definitely getting your money's worth today, right? And, amazing story from University of Exeter and Amazon, guys. Thank you so much for sharing that. Really, really inspirational. AI, right? Oh my gosh, AI is going to take our jobs. Have you heard that? No, that's not right, is it? AI is not going to take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI is going to take your job. Have you heard that? Yeah, it's not very helpful, is it? There's like a lot of negative connotation and narrative around AI currently, but this is the one I like. And who's heard this one? AI is the worst it's going to be right now. What's your response? What do you think when you read that? AI is the worst it'll ever be right now. You can shout out, you can interact, you can talk to me. Give me your thoughts. It's exciting. It's super exciting. Why is it exciting? It can only get better from here on in. And I know there'll be people sat in the room going, yeah, okay, Erica. Yeah, what about, when the robot overlords take over and we're all enslaved and all this kind of stuff? So let's explore that in the session today. My name's Erica Farmer. I'm the co-founder and business director of Quantum Rise Talent Group. We work with corporate learning and development and apprenticeship training providers and universities, LSBU, for really looking at your digital learning and engagement skills strategy and taking it from good to great. We're also the hosts, co-host of the AI for Average Joe podcast. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you do. Our aim in starting the podcast about a year ago was just to get people involved in starting with generative AI. So check it out if you haven't seen it already. This is me at QCon earlier in the year talking to leaders, software development leaders about leadership and tech. And actually a year ago last week, I did my TEDx on reforming education in the digital mindset. Can't believe that was a year ago in education. And I was talking about machine learning and the skills required for using generative AI and getting employers who were already in the space thinking about needing these skills and how they curate and create and work with partners to develop those skills of the future. Because we know that, and I said this last year, the World Economic Forum tells us that kids that are in school right now in between the ages of 5 and 11, 66% of those guys will go into a job that doesn't even exist yet. So how is our education system and how's our embracing of new technology and innovation setting up the success of the workforce of the future? And that's very much around what AI can do for us. So I'm not a head of machine learning, I can't code, I can use a PC pretty well. I class myself as an average Joe when it comes to this stuff. So we tend to use generative AI in our personal lives and our professional lives. And if you're coming to the workshop a bit later, we'll share some really interesting and fun ways to use ChatGPT. But actually, I recognise, particularly in learning and education, that AI is going to be the biggest change that we're going to experience over the next couple of years. And we probably went, oh, yeah, Erica, you said that about digital learning last year. And yeah, we kind of learnt a bunch of stuff about this in the pandemic. But this is already, the adoption rates for AI are already off the scale. Hands up here who's using AI at the moment. So, okay. Yeah, we felt a little bit more confident when the person next to us put their hand up. So about half the group. So that's interesting to know, and that's a good litmus test. Because what we're hearing and understanding when I talk to educationalists and heads of L&D is that we know we should be using it, and we want to use it, but we're not quite sure how to get started. And that tends to feel like it's kind of over here, it's a bit conceptual and it's a bit interesting. But what about cheating, and what about plagiarism, and what about our assessment processes? Because at the moment, you know, what's stopping me putting a written piece of work through to be assessed that's been written by ChatGPT? So let's talk about that. So we know organisations, so the employers that you're working with, the majority of those, according to LinkedIn Learning and the World Economic Forum, are going to be adopting new technologies within the next 3 years. I actually think 3 years, and I had a good conversation with Colin from SDN about this morning. I think 3 years is probably a bit too long. I think it's already happening now, and you're going to see this within the next 18 months to 2 years. If I was a betting woman, that's where I'd put my money. And that's not just AI, by the way, that's the whole technical gambit, but AI is going to be the piece that kind of unlocks a lot of this for us. And I love this because it gets a hell of a response from people. 2023 will be the year we learn to trust our AI colleagues. Why do you think Deloitte chose those particular words? And are there any particular words that stick with you a little bit when reading that? Give me your thoughts. How do you feel? AI's not a colleague. What are you talking about? Absolutely. So that feels a bit weird, and it's not a human, so why would you use the word colleague? Any other thoughts? Anything else stick in the throat for anyone on that phrase? Yeah, go ahead, sir. Absolutely, it's kind of suddenly right in front of us, right? And that word trust, you're expecting me to trust something I don't know, I don't understand, there isn't an operations manual, there isn't a thing I can download from the ESFA to say this is how you use Gen IA in apprenticeships, for example, or qualifications. So, oh my God, what does that mean? And this is where, this isn't just about skills in regards to using AI. By the way, prompt engineering will probably disappear in about 6 months, 12 months, because AI will already know how we like to think and talk and work. So actually there's a wider skill set that sits around this, like things like learning agility and problem solving and critical thinking, and understanding what clear communication looks like in business when we're effectively using things like AI. So I'm really sorry, but this is what the World Economic Job and Skills Report has just said around education. And I'm going to let you read that on the screen. It's to do with the educational model just not being fit for purpose right now, particularly on the dawn of AI. Shortcomings, traditional lecture type education, it doesn't work for everybody. Someone who's ADHD neurodivergent, I couldn't think of anything worse than sitting in the lecture theatre for 2 hours having someone talk to me. It just wouldn't go anywhere. And if 40% of the workforce is on that spectrum at some point, autism, ADHD, dyslexia, you know, whatever it might be, then we need to use these kind of technologies in a skills-based model that's setting people up for success in the future, because employers are looking for skills. That's the important things that we need to be thinking about now. And this is where AI can really support us in understanding what this means, whether your AI becomes your coach or your thought partner, or you role play with it, or you ask it to take a persona and look back on a problem that you want to try and fix. There's so many ways that you could use this in that real critical thinking, critical analysis, thinking of Bloom's taxonomy when it comes to education. So I know professors and lecturers who will use ChatGPT in their lectures, and they will actively ask their students and apprentices to use Gen AI to critically evaluate what the lecturer is saying. Now, actually, you've got to feel pretty comfortable with yourself in being able to take that kind of approach when it comes to pedagogy and online and learning. But this is where we're going. No longer are we going to be the fountain of professional knowledge in terms of where our power sits, because the large language models and the AI using them is already there. It's going to be part of that. That's what your students are already accessing, whether on their phone, whether on their laptops, whether they're using it from home, for example. So this all sounds great, Erica, but why are we not all using AI already? Why? We had about half the group say, yeah, I've started using AI when I asked the question, but why are we not all using it for everything already? What do you think? Any thoughts? Go on. We're not ready, okay, so there's maybe like an infrastructure thing potentially. What else? License costs, yeah, okay, although you could argue it's pretty cost effective specifically compared to a lot of learning technology that we've already been using. Fair enough. Awareness. Anything else? Fear, absolutely. Pride, fear, the thing around trust. A lot of people have an emotional, visceral reaction when you talk about artificial intelligence. You see it on the news every week. There's always an article or somebody talking about AI, or, you know, we've seen Hollywood go on strike recently because of it. There's still that fear gap that we need to think about. But as humans, you know, actually we've been through this before. So we're going to play a game of blankety blank, and I want you to shout out the word that would be in the blank. So most people know blankety blank here. I'm going to read something out and there's a missing word, okay? I want you to shout out the missing word. Okay, early 20th century educators believed that blank would render our brains useless, unable to perform simple mental calculations. University professors were forming protests, prophesying the fall of society as we knew it. What's the blank? Absolutely. Calculators. It's crazy, isn't it? We thought it would change everything, and now we use them all the time. Calculators. Calculators. One more for you. When the printing press was invented, there was a genuine fear that easy-to-access blank would make us lazy, undermine the church, and corrupt the young. The printing press led to an explosion of knowledge and education, and blanks became a beloved source of wisdom. Books, absolutely. So what we tend to do is we go through this piece where we have a bit of fear, we don't know what we're getting into, we have these doomsday type thoughts. We did it when we started talking about PCs and computing in the 1970s. It was going to put us all out of a job. And then we did the same when we started talking about robotics in the 80s. It was going to take all of our jobs. And interestingly, the narrative around AI is similar, even though we're going into a technical revolution rather than an industrial revolution. It's all to do with that fear gap, and you'll have people that you know, and you would have been part of conversations of people saying, I'm quite worried about this, and I don't understand what this means for my job, and, you know, what does the future hold? And perhaps I'm at the stage in my career where I don't want to learn or work with some more technology. You know, my mum ended up retiring between Windows 8 and Windows 9, you know? So you'll have people in that space where they think, I've had enough. It's just too much. And a lot of this comes down to your hearts and minds. And that's why AI isn't just about putting ChatGPT into your organization. It's around the skills that we've talked about, but it's also around the hearts and minds piece as well, because this is where people are going to be. You have those doomsday type thoughts if you don't understand things enough. But once you have a more balanced outlook, when you understand it, things become better and you do start to trust things. And your visceral response goes away, and actually you might feel a bit excited about, what does this mean for the skills that I can now learn in my job? Or I can automate a load of tasks that I really hate doing. You know, so actually from that perspective, it's super exciting. But there is no silver bullet. There's no operations manual, and you all know how quick this technology is moving on a week-by-week basis. Even if you've got a subscription to something like Google Bard or Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT, every time you log on to it, it allows you to do something different. And now you can take a photo or a picture and load it into ChatGPT that's you know, it's got DALL-E as part of it, which is like Midjourney. It's the graphics piece of it. And you can use it to identify, spot the difference, create a different version of, create your own kind of custom graphics, and all of that on just a simple interface, which is really easy to use. So this is the big thing that tends to come out of education and learning as a worry: cheating. How can I stop my students and my apprentices from just doing their work through ChatGPT? Does anyone have like a blanket ban on Gen AI with their students at the moment? Does anybody say you just can't touch it for anything? No, I'm really glad that nobody put their hand up, because actually we all know, and if you've got kids, you'll absolutely be in this space because I hear it all the time. They will be using ChatGPT on their phone. They'll be using different kinds of AI. And actually, if you have your Tesco shop online, you're using AI. If you're using Siri and Alexa, you're using AI. If you speak to your Sky remote control, you're using AI. This kind of technology has been around for a long time. It's just that it's been a lot more sophisticated and leveled up with ChatGPT that came in March last year, because the data points have gone into the billions, i.e. it's been trained to pretty much know everything we know and has started to talk to the internet and all that kind of stuff. So the first thing I did when I logged onto GPT is I asked it to write a degree dissertation, an extract, an overview of the subculture of a women's university football team, and it must cover topics like sexuality, hierarchy, socialising, and singing songs and power. That was my dissertation when I was 19, 20 at university, and it took me weeks to write, and I fell in love with it, and I hated it, and all the rest of it. You know, being a sports person, doing a degree in sport, why do I have to write 10,000 word dissertation? That's not what I signed up for. Anyway, I thought, I'm going to put this into GPT and see what happens. So I did it, and this is what it came back with. Okay, good. So first kind of topics, my overviews. I don't need you to read it word for word, but okay, that's totally how I would have approached it. And then it gave me that, the captain's role, the emergence of leadership, socialising and bonding as a team. Yeah, I covered that and that. Chants and anthems, subcontracting, subculture, songs, power dynamic. Yeah, I covered all that. And in conclusion, you know, this is what it means to the subculture of the football team. That took me weeks to write, and I got a 2-2. So I did it right, it wasn't too bad. But you know what, I thanked it for it, and it wished me good luck and said it was welcome. So actually, this is where the AI colleague piece starts to come in. That feels a little bit human, doesn't it? That's a bit weird. Why is it saying you're welcome, good luck with your dissertation? Interesting times, and that is genuine screenshots from my GPT account. So what that didn't have, which my dissertation did have, was the Ericaisms, the examples, the language, the songs that we sung on a Wednesday afternoon after winning in our booster matches, the little stories, the things I thought about it and the way I felt about being in the women's football team. All of that extra personality, ChatGPT and other Gen AI at the moment can't do that. So that's one of the things that you can look out for. And if people are using Gen AI, fantastic. But actually, you need to think about what's the story and the narrative that people are using as part of that, and actually ask them to talk to you about it. Because if it's just come from artificial intelligence, perhaps the professional discussion or the interview that you get off the back of it won't be as value add as what it could have been. Anybody using AI detection tools here or thinking about it? Yeah. I personally think, and I'm happy to be challenged on this, they're a bit of a red herring. Because by the time a company develops something with enough training points at it, the AI is already kind of miles ahead. And we see this through papers. This is one of the biggest papers that have already been launched on detection tools. It basically recommends, particularly for universities, to adjust your assessment strategy, to make it more human, because we've got that human-robot relationship now, and if we stick to using things like written work only, you're going to have a problem. You're going to get into conflict. And people who are already working in this space, your lecturers, your professors, your tutors, your assessors, your coaches, they need to be up to date on this stuff as well. So it's not just delivering curriculum and content. Like we talked about with digital learning last year, it's understanding the nuances of how Gen AI works and whether it can be fooled or whether it can't be fooled. So it's more around comprehensive training of academic staff to understand the world and the possibilities. And by the way, that's an ongoing thing. That's not just a one day's training and then we're done, tick in the box for CPD for AI. You know, this is going to have to be, and this is where I talk about learning agility, we need to be able to put things down and pick things up mentally with cognition to understand these are the skills and the understanding that I need right now. And actually, I might not need that in 6 months. So I'll put that back down again, and I need to pick up something new. And that's the world that we're coming into now. We're not in these big verticals, these ivory towers anymore. And this is the reason, this is the turn detection tool, which is one of the most popular that's been tested. Lots of false positives. So you could be effectively saying to your apprentices and students they've used AI when they haven't, because the detection tool is telling them they have. And all of this information is available. Lack of understanding on how to interpret what that means in terms of the detection tools. It's not kind of cheated, didn't cheat. It doesn't work that way. If you're really great at prompting, so the ask that you put within your large language model, if you're really clever, you can trick the tools anyway. And actually, AI is giving, day by day, more human-like responses. You saw that when it wished me good luck with my dissertation. So actually, how do we know who's the human and how do we know who the machine is? And I'm sure we're all starting to have those kind of conversations right now. So this is my view. What are we meant to do, Erica? Like, you're telling us all these problems. You're telling us not to use the software. So what are we meant to do? This is my take. Start with ethics and behaviours. This is about creating an authentic learning culture within your establishment, with your apprentices, with your students. You know, what I'm talking about is a cross-functional conversation around what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, okay? Start with your policies, your procedures, and this isn't an IT thing, writing a policy. This is a conversation with your delivery teams, your design teams, your researchers, your HR, your managers. This is conversation for everybody to have, because you can't reprimand students, apprentices, or team members for using Gen AI if you haven't been clear around what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable. And don't get me wrong, there's times where it won't be acceptable to use it, but you can provide a RAG rating status or a policy on specific examples or whatever that might be. But be clear on the consequences of cheating and what that means as well. And that's not just saying you won't pass the course. That's the conversation that probably our parents had with us at some point when we didn't go to school sometimes, was, you know, what does that mean for your future career and what you're going to miss out of? And what does that mean as well? And the impact of putting the time for the value of growth and effort into it. So you need to start thinking about what does our learning culture look and feel like and what are the important conversations that we need to have. Ethics, think about the digital divide. You know, we've talked, Amazon and Exeter talked a lot about social mobility and the need to provide those opportunities. And if we're not careful, students who don't have access might not use it, or the fear gap might be too big that we talked about earlier. So it's almost the responsibility of your learning practitioners to be able to have that AI conversation as part of the curriculum that they're delivering and enable people to be using it as a learning tool. We know there's bias, we know there's misinformation on there, so that's why you need a good quality checking process. It's not about taking everything that your large language model spits out and using that for gospel. And this is where you can get really clever in your sessions by getting people to critique what comes out of ChatGPT or whatever you use. And it could be content, it could be information. You know, this is data that's mined, that's come from people, and people are inherently biased. So it's not the AI, it comes from us. So have these conversations with your apprentices and your students to understand what does that bigger picture look like? And when they do put a prompt or something in, you know, assess what does that look like in terms of the validity. And of course, you've got to be really clear in terms of things like IP and data privacy. Your data protection policy is more important now than it ever has been. And I tend to say when people say, Erica, what should I put in ChatGPT in terms of organizational data? My response at the moment is, would you put it on Facebook? And they say no, and then I say, well, there you go. Unless you've got a closed system that you pay for with a specific license where your data's not going to go anywhere else. Your students and apprentices, your administrators doing your ILR, if you're asking them to do some information, people need to know this stuff, because if they don't know, they're going to go and do it, and you might have a problem with your data. So again, just kind of gen up around this stuff a little bit and understand the ins and outs. Mixed assignments, look at your assessment strategy, look at your learning strategy, play to different strengths, look at the different needs of your learners, and make people understand what that means in terms of their options. Ask for things like storytelling and personal examples, like you would do in a dissertation, for example. What does this learning actually mean to that apprentice, rather than just regurgitating a leadership model? This is where you could really get into using this stuff great. And the unique experiences, particularly what you'll pick up from neurodivergent learners and that diverse talent, will be so valuable that you'll learn so much from your students, probably just as much as what they're learning from you. And all of this stuff operates right now, and it's not just the AI that I'm talking about, it's the skill set and the mindset that sits around this stuff. Open-ended assessments, critical analysis, high-level thinking. I think you're going to take things away around your assessment strategy when it comes to AI and how that needs to change and adapt. These are the things you need to be thinking about. I've talked about a lot of this already. You can sample your content. So if you do have a suspicion that somebody has put something in, you can put it back into the large language model and ask it to assess itself. You can prompt GPT to ask it if the information it's looking at has come from AI. So this again is where you don't have to be experts, you don't have to be coders or heads of machine learning. This is the average Joe stuff that I'm talking about. It's just being aware that you could do this stuff, and there's just different tools and tricks and techniques to use it. Lots of free resources. The UNESCO have just finished that AI competency framework. That was the work in process when I took the screenshot, but if you follow them on LinkedIn, weekly I'm seeing an update in regards to the kind of teacher resources, pedagogy, standards, all around using Gen AI. So that is a great resource to use, so go and have a look at that. And there's some other partners there as well. Quantum Rise, we write a lot about using things like digital learning and AI. So go and have a look at quantumrise.co.uk. There's a bunch of stuff there that we've written that will just give you some thoughts and questions and queries to take into your organisations or have those conversations. And of course, check out AI for the Average Joe podcast. We've had lots of great feedback around this. It's Hayley, my business partner, and myself really just playing around with AI and seeing what it can do and what it can't do. I know Hayley's got a great example where she had the kids on a Sunday afternoon and it was tipping it down and the kids were bouncing off the walls, and Hayley's thinking, what can I do to entertain the kids? She went on to ChatGPT and asked it to write a treasure hunt. So wrote 10 treasure hunt clues, put them around the house. The kids were engrossed for 2 hours. Come and talk to Hayley about it if you want to know more information. So this is what I mean about this is going to change everything about how we operate. This isn't just an education thing or a work thing. So thank you very much. I hope that's been helpful. Could take some questions.